Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. In the month of July, my family is going camping, and usually when I go camping, I pretty much only take my Kindle. Sometimes I might take like one hard copy book, but primarily it's my Kindle, and I love the vibe of sitting out in my camping chair, maybe by the fire, and reading. So I'm excited to see what reading I get done. I also recently saw some videos from Just Martine talking about reading through the Kindle. So I am taking my camping trip and the idea from Just Martine to take the time to read through some books on my Kindle. I used to read almost only on my Kindle for a couple of years. The last 2 years, I feel like I have not been doing as much Kindle reading, but I still have a lot of books on here. So I am going to go through and see how much reading on my Kindle I can do in the month of July, particularly while we are camping. So first of all, I'm just looking through some of the books that I'm already in the middle of, and one of which is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I'm 57% of the way through, so I really think that I should be able to finish that this month. There's also Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. I loved this series by her. Breaker series. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And then I read a couple other books by Bridget Kemmerer that I also really enjoyed. So I thought I would devour Defy the Night. I've had a really hard time getting into it. I'm still only 16% of the way through, and I started it several months ago, but I do want to finish it. I have a feeling that as I get going more into it, that it will pick up, but we'll see. I started reading Blackwood by Fiona Howell. I'm 12% of the way through. I found this book because she is actually a YouTuber, and I wanted to start reading more books from people on AuthorTube. I'm 1% of the way through Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I just started that one. Ooh, Never Lie by Freda McFadden. I'm 27% of the way through. This one started as a read aloud with my husband on one of our road trips, but it ended up being kind of possibly too intense, or rather I didn't exactly know where it was going for little ears in the backseat of the car. So we put a pause in it, and then I was waiting for another time to finish it with him, and that just hasn't happened. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it myself because I'm very curious. And then I just have a whole bunch of books that I have not started that are yet on my list. There's the book Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett, The Dance of the Dissident Daughter by Sue Monk Kidd. That one I am 21% of the way through. Token by Beverly Kendall. Try Softer by Andy Kolber. Anyway, so that is one of my reading goals, particularly on the camping trip, and for at least a while for the month of July, I want to read through my Kindle and see what I can knock out. So stay tuned for the update, and I will let you guys know how this project goes. Say hello. Good boy. Okay, we'll see if my cat settles down. We are back for a camping trip, and it was a very relaxing week, very relaxing few days. We got to go hiking, see some scenery, we went swimming in a lake, saw lots of wildlife. I'll probably pop some pictures up of some of the very wonderful animals that we saw on our camping trip. I also got a lot of reading done, which was so fun, and I was able to knock out a handful of books for my Cleaning Out My Kindle challenge. Why is my cat sniffing so aggressively? He's acting like he's never seen the stuff on my desk before. I was able to finish 5 books on my Kindle, which is amazing. All but one of them I had previously started, so I was just a matter of finishing them up on this trip. I think camping vibes are some of my favorite reading vibes, so it was just fun to be able to work on this Kindle challenge while camping. On to my books in no particular order. The first book that I finished was a Kennedy Ryan book, Before I Let Go. I have heard so many people rave about Kennedy Ryan and her books. Before I Let Go is a second chance romance. Josiah and Yasmin have a fairy tale romance that is rock solid and will last forever. Until it doesn't. After some very difficult things happen, they end up getting a divorce. When the book opens, they are co-parenting their kids and also co-managing a restaurant. However, they can't deny the feelings that they still have for each other, and eventually they're forced to reckon with those feelings, and also forced to reckon with taking ownership of their own side of what happened in their marriage and eventually led to their divorce. I honestly had remarkably mixed thoughts on this book. I think I will give it 3.5 bookmarks. I think the big reason it's not more is because I did not personally care for the writing style. It felt a little bit more of like a cozy vibe, a cozy romance, and I don't tend to like cozy genres. The couple also had a lot of physical chemistry, which is not necessarily bad, but it also just seemed to be a lot, and I much prefer my spice to be a part of the plot as opposed to that kind of seeming to be like the bulk of what is forming their romance, because you kind of need more than just that to create a full romance and love story. So those were my thoughts for the first half to maybe 3/4 of the book. And then things kind of started to pick up for me. Both main characters really ended up having a lot of depth and a lot of growth, which I love in a story. And the story itself did start to get into more of the other aspects of love and romance, of not just the physical, but getting into more of what makes this person the person that they love. And I finally started to feel more invested in the characters and the story. A couple parts of the book did really make me tear up. It deals with some heavier topics, including mental health and some other things that I don't want to give spoilers to. And some of her descriptions really resonated with me. And I just really appreciate when a book can take real life, hard things and make them feel so real and relatable, because that's not easy to do as a writer. I also love that in this book, both parties were doing their work, going to therapy, taking ownership, apologizing. It was not just on the woman to do that aspect of the emotional labor of the relationship. So I loved seeing that in a book as well. I think maybe overall the book was just a little long for me and a bit too much of the spice talking, descriptions and scenes and thoughts on almost every page. But it was good enough that I do want to read more by this author. The second book I finished is Signs of Life, 40 Catholic Customs and Their Biblical Roots by Scott Hahn. My husband and I always have a book that we read aloud on road trips. He usually drives and I usually read. And this is the book that we've been reading the last couple trips. Neither one of us grew up Catholic, and the faith tradition that we did grow up in didn't necessarily have very kind things to say about the Catholic faith. So for a while now, I've been wanting to learn more and actually hear from a Catholic about the Catholic faith and not just hearing from other people talking about it. It's a pretty quick read, just a few pages on each topic, and it goes through various customs and practices of the Catholic faith, like the sign of the cross, daily prayers, praying with the saints, images and relics, etc. It was a good read and provided a good overview for anyone who is curious or wants to know more about the Catholic faith. Next is Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. I have to admit, this book was one that I kind of kept reading by gritting my teeth and powering through. But I adored her Cursebreaker series. Love it so much. Please read it. It's so great. So good. So this book just, I guess maybe I just had too high of expectations and I was expecting it to be another Cursebreaker type book. And it did not grab me as much from the beginning. Defy the Night starts out with two characters, Tessa and Weston, who are working in an apothecary mixing this elixir. We find out that this kingdom that they live in has a widespread disease, but the royal elites are kind of monopolizing the elixir and giving out very small rations to the people in the towns. So Tessa and Weston are manufacturing and distributing this elixir secretly, knowing that if they're caught, they could be killed. In the palace, Prince Korik is the king's justice, and he has a lot of roles, one of which is doling out this elixir and trying to keep rebellion at bay. Through a series of events, Tessa and Weston's paths cross, and they have to decide if they can trust each other and if they'll end up working together or not. I did enjoy this book, but not as much as Cursebreaker. I ended up giving it 3 bookmarks, and I truly don't know why I had such a hard time getting into it. It's not like the writing was bad or the characters were terrible. It wasn't the vibe for me, I guess. I do enjoy stories, generally speaking, where enemies end up having to work together and listen to each other, and they kind of figure out that they're not purely just evil. They're actually a human with nuanced things. And maybe we don't know everything going on in the palace, and the palace doesn't know everything going on in the villages. So I like that element. It also raised some ethical questions that were very interesting to think about as well. Overall, this book was okay, but not great for me. The next one I finished was Never Lie by Frida McFadden. It was my first Frida McFadden book, and it is a thriller, and it follows the story of Trisha and Ethan. They are newlyweds, and they are in the market to buy their first house. One wintry day, they end up off the beaten path at this somewhat of a mansion for a showing to see if they want to buy the house. A winter storm hits and they end up trapped at this house for several days. This house previously belonged to Dr. Adrian Hale, who was a psychiatrist who mysteriously disappeared a few years ago. While exploring the house, Trisha ends up discovering a secret room, and in that room are cassette tapes with dozens and dozens of audio recordings of the sessions that Dr. Hale had with her patients. Trisha starts listening to these cassette tapes, and the story is told with chapters from the past about Dr. Adrian Hale, chapters from the present from Trisha's perspective, and it's interspersed with transcripts of these cassette tapes. As with most thrillers, there are so many twists and turns and reveals, so I can't say too much beyond that so as to not give anything away. I was so hooked, I was so curious, I was trying to piece things together and figure out all the pieces. And then it ended up being a 3 bookmark read for me, and that's really all I can say without doing any spoilers. I think that I am definitely open to trying more from Freida McFadden, so if you have another book by her that you really liked, let me know, and I want to try some more. And the 5th book that I finished was a 4 bookmark read for me, but I read that book primarily for another challenge and another video, so stay tuned for that one. So there's my summary for my Clean Out My Kindle challenge. It feels really good to get those 4 books finished and off my Kindle. Even though they were not high bookmark reads, I still overall really enjoyed the process, I enjoyed the reading time, and I enjoyed doing this challenge. I think I might try to do this maybe a couple times a year to just have intentional time to work on my Kindle, because I feel like I get so caught up these days in my library books, which is great and I love it, that sometimes I forget about my Kindle. So I might do another one of these challenges at some point. Have you read any of these books? Do you agree or disagree with my ratings? Let me know, and until next time, happy reading. In the month of July, yes, you can come up here, that's fine. Okay, the cat asked to be let out. Let's see how long he lasts before he is trying to come back in. Dickens. I'm definitely open to trying something else by Freida McFadden.